Good morning. Welcome to Trading Hour. I'm Reema Tendulkar. With me is Sonal Bhutra, and we've been reflecting since morning, right? The life, the times of the great Ratan Tata, the legacy he leaves behind, and that will continue through the day. There is a businessman and there is a statesman, and Ratan Tata counts amongst the very few statesmen, and he will be missed forever. But just to talk about the markets, because markets have been trading, we just want to highlight that we've slipped from the top of the trading session, particularly in the last 30 or 45 minutes. The Nifty is now closer to 2,500. The high today was 25,135. So from that level, we've given up close to about 100 points from the top. There you have it. Somewhere around 10:15, 10:30, markets were trading with a gain of close to about 150 points. So from that level, we have slipped quite a bit. PSUs continue to do well, but pharma is under pressure. The Nifty Healthcare Index is down, and FMCG is struggling for the second day in a row. So in the FMCG pack, you've got Trent, Britannia, HUL, Asian Paints. These are stocks with cuts of about 1–1.5%. Adani Enterprises, in fact, the Adani Group of stocks have come under pressure. In the pharma names, it's Cipla, which stands amongst the top losers.
So yes, big movers in the Nifty pack, but as you said, we've come up from the highs. We are getting visuals, of course, from the last rides, and of course, we'll keep updating you on what is taking place there. A lot of big businessmen, a lot of crowd here to pay last respects to Mr. Ratan Tata. But let's just quickly get back to the markets, and of course we'll talk about it more. Mid-cap seem to be doing really well. Nifty has come off further from the highs of the day, so it's a 38-point uptick on the Nifty right now. But it's a sharp fall from the highs. We have mid-caps which are up 132 points. The Bank Nifty too is doing well. That is lending some support today to the Nifty. But other than that, if we look at the sectoral movers, a lot of them in the red today. So we have something like the Nifty Consumption Index, which is not doing well. The Pharma Index is not doing well. IT also is putting some pressure, and we do have TCS's numbers today, so that will be key to watch in terms of market movers as well. But of course, getting back to the top news of the day, former chairman of the Tata Group and a national icon, Ratan Tata, passed away last night at the age of 86. Born in 1937 in the Navsari region of Gujarat, Ratan Tata was the great-grandson of Jamsetji Tata, the founder of the Tata Group. He took over the reins of the group in 1991 and oversaw the diversification and growth of the group into multiple sectors. Under his guidance, the Tata Group has also launched the Tata Indica, which is 1998 was India's first indigenously manufactured car. The Tata Group also helped cement a global footprint for Indian businesses with the acquisitions of Jaguar Land Rover, Tetley and Chorus. He was also honoured with the Padma Bhushan in 2000 and the Padma Vibhushan in 2004 for his contributions to the Indian industry.
But Ratan Tata was so much more beyond business and boardroom. He was also known for his philanthropy, vision, and contributed to the healthcare, education, and the development through Tata Trust, having reportedly donated more than 60% of his income to charitable causes. His philanthropic efforts touched millions of lives, and a belief in ethical business practices was a constant drive to uplift India, and that made him a loved figure, not just in boardrooms, but also in the hearts of everyday Indians. Tributes have been pouring in from national leaders and industrialists. Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid his condolences on Twitter, acknowledging his service to business and society. Reliance Industries Chairman Mukesh Ambani paid his tribute and said, Ratan Tata's passing away is a big loss, not just to the Tata Group, but to every Indian. Adani Group's Gautam Adani in a tweet said, India has lost a giant, a visionary who redefined modern India's path.
And Anand Mahindra paid his condolences in a very emotional tweet saying, I'm unable to accept the absence of Ratan Tata. Several other big names from the industry, including the likes of Harsh Goenka, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Venu Srinivasan, Chairman Emeritus of TVS Motor, also paid their tribute to the legend.
On the screen, you can see RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das, who's come in to pay his tributes to Mr. Ratan Tata. In fact, he's standing next to Chandra over there, Chandra over there. And a lot of dignitaries, political, heads of political parties. We had the NCP chief, Supremo, also there earlier. Industrialists like Kumar Mangalam Birla have been on the side of Noel Tata for a while now. So since morning, we've seen industrialists, businessmen, come in to pay their last respects to the great man, Ratan Tata.
In fact, earlier today, CS Sethi of SBI, Baba Kalyani of Bharat Forge and Rajiv Bajaj of Bajaj Auto also offered their condolences to Ratan Tata. Let's listen in.
We share very deep relationship with SBI and Tata Group share a deep relationship, and he has been, upheld the best practices of governance throughout his life, and the emulation of his corporate governance, I think, is the need of the hour for the whole corporate India. And as you mentioned, our relationship, the group relationship, goes back more than a century.
Ratan Tata really brought India together in terms of India's industry. He created a vision for India to move forward, and that's the respect he gained amongst the entire industry. India will miss him greatly. He was somebody who built a strong and positive brand for India.
Whether it was the memories from childhood, whether it was the hospitality, or whether it was the openness to work together, I think it tells me one thing about the person. He was a very, very sensitive man, a man of extraordinary sensitivity. And I think the world needs more people like that who are sensitive to everything that happens around them.
Tribute coming in, but of course we are in an age of social media, and he was no less than an influencer, right? He could give competition to many an influencer. So let's go down the memory lane and listen into one of Ratan Tata's interviews with Shireen Bhan, where he spoke about how he wanted to be remembered in this age of social media. He said when he came on Instagram is made it to the gram. So just listen in to that conversation.
You're active on social media, you're on Twitter, you're now also on Instagram. Are you enjoying that experience? You said previously that there's nowhere to escape from the virus and from the pandemic, but with the vaccination and hopefully with the world opening up, where would you like to escape to?
If I think about how would I like to be remembered, I would like to be remembered as a person who was able to make a change, who is able to be responsible for some change in the way we looked at things. What that might be spelt out as, I can't really say, because I have a feeling that that's going to just happen one day, where you become the innovator of something that people have talked about and not done. And you have found that little alley that enables you to do something which people thought was unviable and not possible. That would be an immensely exciting area to be in. And if one could have that satisfaction of saying, I enabled an artificial eye to be created, or I enabled X or Y or Z to happen, that to me, even if it were not financially the most successful, what it brings to the world would be exciting to a person like me.
Okay, we'll get into a break on that note. We'll come back and get back to the markets. We'll also talk commodities with Manisha Gupta.
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Trading Hour. We are getting visuals from NCPA. So let's go across to our colleagues Yash Jain and Rachna Dhanrajani. They are joining us from the ground.
Well, that is correct. So as we had told you, about 10:30 is when the mortal remains of Mr. Ratan Tata were taken out of his residence in Colaba, just about 10 minutes away from this place where we are standing right now at NCPA Nariman Point. Right behind me is where you can see that the mortal remains have been kept. People have been queuing up outside NCPA. There are long queues. People belonging to the Tata Group, employees, otherwise people from family, well-wishers, and largely there are people who are from the sports fraternity, from the entertainment fraternity, coming here, from the different gates at NCPA to pay their last respects. As we can see just right now, KK Mistry from HDFC has also come and he is about to pay his last respect. Of course, there are veterans from the Tata Group who are present here in about, looking at the queue and the number of people who've been wanting to pay the last respect. I'm assuming it would take about a couple of hours, for which the mortal remains would be kept here. And then once, that ends, the final procession would start. Rachna, my colleague, has also been tracking it since the time Mr. Ratan Tata was admitted to the hospital yesterday, and after that, everything that has transpired.
Right. Well, last night we were at Breach Candy Hospital around 11:30, very close to the midnight. It was confirmed when we heard from the doctors from the Tata Group that this unfortunate demise has occurred. Even then, we had seen well-wishers who were crowding outside the hospital. Among the well-wishers were, of course, Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis. Here now, as the mortal remains have been brought to the NCPA, we first saw Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar, Praful Patel, along with others. There was also Sharad Pawar, accompanied by Supriya Sule. From India Inc., we just saw RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das, who had come in here to pay his respects. We also see Kumar Mangalam Birla, MDs and CEOs of all Tata Group of companies. There's Mr. Praveer Sinha, Mr. Shailesh Chandra, Mr. P. Balaji, K. Kritivasan. All of them are here paying their homage and their last respects to Mr. Tata. Now, he had been admitted in the hospital since Monday, as we had heard, and in fact on Sunday, actually, in the late night hours, and on Monday he had issued a statement thanking everyone for thinking of him, and also acknowledging that he was indeed being checked up on and being taken care of at the Breach Candy Hospital for some age-related illness. And it was 2 days after that this illness took a turn for worse and has taken away the Kohinoor of India, as he was lovingly called. Yash? You've been here since morning. You were also at Colaba. Last night we saw they took his mortal remains out of Breach Candy Hospital to the Tata House in Colaba, and you've been following up since morning. What is it that you've been seeing?
Well, that's correct, and it's a situation where the popularity of Mr. Ratan Tata, the kind of inspiration that he provides to people is not confined just to the corporate world. It spreads across, as I said, the sports fraternity, to the entertainment industry, to, of course, India Inc., and every common person walking on the street. Certainly, all of them today feel that sort of a connection, and hence when I was also entering NCPA today, it wasn't just people who were directly connected to Mr. Ratan Tata. There were so many people from, of course, the Parsi community, from other communities, who just liked the idea which Ratan Tata possessed, and that's why we see so many people who had nothing to do with him otherwise also coming here and sharing that moment of grief with others here. And that is the reason why it's going to be a very difficult Tata to this Ratan of India, as someone said today morning.
Right. Also, Chief Minister Eknath Shinde has announced a state funeral for him. A day has been given off in Maharashtra as well as in Jharkhand. We're also seeing that a lot of common people, including the Tata employees, are here to pay their respects. In fact, yesterday night, as soon as the word got out, we saw huge groups of people outside Breach Candy shedding a tear. In fact, I also heard people say that they'd never met him, they'd never known him personally, but it somehow still feels like a very personal loss, and it's a very deep and a tragic loss that each one of us as Mumbaikars and as Indians we're completely going through.
Oh,
that's correct.
absolutely.
I mean, that's exactly what everybody here is feeling.
Okay, all right. Yash and Rachna, thank you so much for joining in with those details. Of course, it's a big loss, and that's something that we have been talking about and something that we cannot get over as well. For now, we'll do one thing. We will slip into a break, but when we return, we'll talk about markets and a lot more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Still just about holding on to that 25,000 mark on the Nifty. It's a good time then to talk about market technicals because we've slipped from the top of the trading session. Soni Patnaik from JM Financial is with us now. Soni?
Hi, good morning, Rima and Sonal. Thank you so much for having me on your show. So I think if we talk about Nifty, there's a resistance around 25,100 to 150 for today's expiry and a good support of around 24,900. There's most likely the expiry for today can happen within this range. Any bout of short covering in Nifty can only be seen above 25,300 level. So I think that's a level to watch out for. Until and unless that is not taken out, the sideways trend between this range between 24,900 to 25,100, 150 can continue for some more days. I think important is to watch from current level is Bank Nifty, which is actually has a strength to test 52,000 from current levels. So I think Bank Nifty with a very strong support of 50,800 can test 52,000. Maybe that's the level from where it can see another round of selling pressure. But as of now, there's another 800 points of movement left in Bank Nifty on the upside.
Okay, and stock, Soni?
So here would be a balanced approach, one buy and a sell idea. The buy idea comes in HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics, which has seen a very strong up move and a good intraday breakout. One can buy in futures around 4,500 on any declines till 44.70. Keep a stop loss of 4,400 and a target of 4,600 to 4,650 can be seen. The sell idea comes in for Sun TV, which is breaking below its 20 EMA support. So one can sell Sun TV futures around 801, keep a stop loss of 812, and a target of 790 to 785 can be seen.
Okay, all right, Soni, thank you so much for joining in with those technical trades. It's time for a short break now. On the other side, we'll take a look at how the aviation space changed in India under Ratan Tata. Jitendra Bhargav, the former executive director at Air India, will be joining us.
Now let's talk about aviation. We know aviation flying was one of the passions of Ratan Tata. And we've seen, the aviation industry undergo a sea change on account of Ratan Tata and the Tata Group. So first, Air India was a part of the Ratan Tata Group. It was nationalized, and after many decades, it's once again come back into the fold of the Tata House. And in that course of period, there's also been that alliance with Singapore Airlines, Vistara. So to talk more about how the Tata Group, especially under Ratan Tata, changed the aviation industry and the landscape in India, we have Jitendra Bhargav, former executive director at Air India, joining in. Mr. Bhargav, have you personally interacted with Mr. Tata? Is there any personal anecdotes that you would like to share?
No.
And then if you could... Okay, all right. Then if you could just wait.
Unfortunately not, because Mr. Ratan Tata was chairman of Air India. At the time, I had just joined in 1989, and he wasn't there for very much thereafter. So I did not have the opportunity, but on social occasions, a few yes, but not on a one-to-one basis, would be wrong on my part to try and say. But his love for aviation and why Air Indians will be grateful to him will be when the government got into the disinvestment exercise. In the first round, there were no takers. It was Mr. Ratan Tata's personal love for aviation and for Air India, and to keep the legacy of J.R.D. Tata alive, that Tatas eventually bid and succeeded. So we'll always be grateful to Mr. Ratan Tata for the initiative that he had. But the other part would be that we also feel sorry for him, that his love was there. He wanted to acquire Air India at least 20 years earlier, but he had a very, very miserable experience, and he himself expressed it, that look, the environment that was created by the people who were in the aviation business at that time, etc., wasn't very fair. I have been a part of the J.R.D. Tata Memorial Trust, of which Mr. Ratan Tata was the patron. So on behalf of the trust also, we'd like to pay tribute to him, that for all his love for aviation, for his commitment to Air India, and to see that Air India flourishes again. No words will suffice, because what he has done for Air India's long-term interest, national interest, to keep the Tata's flag high. And that's one reason why people are so enamored of Air India, notwithstanding that in the last 2.5 years, Air India has not met the expectations the way people were looking forward, but they still want to give Tata House the credit for it and are waiting patiently for it. And the biggest tribute that one can pay to the House of Tatas, led by Ratan Tata for the last 3 decades, is that when the disinvestment took place, there was no political turmoil. Why was it that there was no turmoil? Because it was the Tatas which was acquiring Air India. Had it been any other company acquiring House, this project would not have succeeded. So you can imagine the credibility, the ethics that the Tata House follows, and all it's into Mr. Ratan Tata's image. And that's the reason why there's so much of outpouring of grief on his demise, that people are just thinking what happened, because a couple of days ago only, Mr. Ratan Tata did give a message that perhaps everything was well with him and there was no reason for people to worry. But we feel really very sorry about it, that Mr. Ratan Tata is not in our midst any longer.
That's right. It's a national loss and something that we can just talk about now, but, something that we cannot, it leaves the legacy behind, and a lot of it. But of course, aviation is one of the biggest feathers in his cap, getting back Air India, the divestment that happened. And you said it was a smooth divestment process that took place as well. Mr. Bhargav, how involved was he in the aviation business before, of course, it became public, and after, now that we saw this change come by as well? If you can tell us something that happened before, because that is something that the viewers would want to know.
You see, we look at the period in the mid-1980s when he was appointed chairman of Air India. He was the chairman, non-executive, part-time chairman of Air India, and he was contributing his right. And that was the time when the plan to refurbish Air India, buy more aircraft was on. But unfortunately, did not succeed in that period. So his interest with, you see, I can quote one good anecdote, which Mr. Ratan Tata quoted at the launch of Vistara in Mumbai. He said in 91-92, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao had called Mr. J.R.D. Tata. Mr. Tata came out of the meeting and called up Mr. Ratan Tata to say that, look, I had a meeting. The government is opening up the aviation sector to private airlines. But when we were running Air India earlier, everything was different. The market was different. The technology was different. So if we have to give India a world-class airline, we need to tie up. And that is how Singapore Airlines got attached, even in the year 1992-93, when they were first very keen on acquiring Air India. So this incident was, this interaction with JRD was narrated by Ratan Tata from the stage at the launch of Vistara at Taj Landsat Hotel in 2015. I recall that incident. And that is where the Tatas have always felt they needed a partner. And now that post this investment, as we all know, that Singapore Airlines wasn't initially keen, but after they acquired, now Vistara has merged, Singapore Airlines is a 25.1% partner. So that's where it's going to help. So Mr. Ratan Tata's focus was very much there, that we needed an airline and we needed a world-class airline, and they're all working in that direction. So far we have been saying that Tatas were going to keep the legacy of J.R.D. Tata alive. Now we got to also add that Mr. Ratan Tata's vision for Air India will be fulfilled by the House of Tatas.
Thank you, Mr. Bhargav. You know, Sonal, there is this very nice picture of Mr. Ratan Tata at the Bangalore Aero Show a couple of years back, where he's in that fighter jet.
Yeah.
He looks just like, you know,
very
Tom
swanky.
Cruise. Yeah, just like Tom Cruise in, you know, Top Gun.
He was not, you know, you can say that he was 86, but he was trendier than a lot of people this generation already, right? So that picture itself speaks
I wish we had
volumes.
that, you know, picture. But it was one at, you know, the Aero Show which took place. He in the full gear. There's also another story that when Tata Sons took over Air India in 2022, Airbus had come to India. I mean, Airbus was flying one of its, you know, long-haul kind of airlines, and Mr. Tata was not well. But still, you know, assisted with a lot of people. He went inside the aircraft and he went for a short ride. It also shows his commitment to business and his love for aviation. But lots of tributes have been pouring in since morning. Let's listen in to some of them.
I was here to pay my respects to the departed soul. There are two things which stand out about Sri Ratan Tata. The first is that he was a true visionary, a great visionary. The second thing was that he was a strong believer in ethics in corporate governance. I think whenever the economic history of modern India is written, I would feel that a full volume will not be enough to describe his achievements. A truly towering personality, a great son of India, a phenomenal person. May his soul rest.
जीवन ऐसा था कि वहाँ से बहुत कुछ है जो हम सीख सकते हैं. मेरा ये प्रिविलेज था कि मैं उनके साथ काफ़ी मेरी करीबता रही कई सालों तक और बहुत कुछ सीखने मिला मुझे उनसे और आदर्श पुरुष थे कई तरह से. तो हमको उनकी जो ज़िंदगी है सेलिब्रेट करना चाहिए. हमेशा बहुत स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड थे. उनको अपने कंपनीज के बारे में हमेशा सोचते थे 24/7. He's an outstanding person.
He left an indelible mark on not just businessmen, the common people, but so many market men who've created wealth, learned many lessons by investing in Tata Group. I think, you know, under Ratan Tata itself, we've seen the market cap of the Tata Group companies. Now it stands at more than 30 lakh crore, but I think under him, the market cap went from 30,000 crore rupees to 5 lakh crore rupees. And I believe the revenues went up from 18,000 crore to 5.5 lakh crore. That was his journey from 1992 to 2012. We also spoke to a whole host of big market voices earlier. Listen in to what they had to say about the legend.
What Tata Group has been able to showcase, or just as an example, that even in a country like this, you can have the highest level of ethical standard, you can work for the entire society, and you can still be the largest group, you can still create the largest amount of wealth for stakeholders. He not only took one company, but he took several of Tata companies out of India and he established a brand.
But he was also a great business leader. He was willing to put money on the table, take the group international because he thought it was important. And I think one of the unwritten stories has been the last few years of the bull market that has taken place in the Tata Group companies. You've seen Trent become a household name. You've seen Titan become a household name. You've seen Taj Hotels doing so well. I think the groundwork for that bull run was laid by late Ratan Tata in terms of delivering for shareholder value. There's also just briefly, if I may say, that even during the darkest hours, the Tata stood by certain principles.
The other thing is, Ratan Tata, I would say, was the one who gave confidence to Indian corporates to look beyond India and to think big. Acquisitions of $10, $20 billion. You need really, really guts to pull them off. And as you rightly said, I think profit comes if you are good and if you think long term. And I think that is what the whole ethos of Tata's has been.
Mr. Tata's pursuit of philanthropy is legendary, both within India and outside India. I would only say that may he rest in eternal peace as India bows to this giant of a man.
टाटा समूह का नेतृत्व करना ही अपने आप में
एक बहुत बड़ी बात होती है, परंतु उन्होंने टाटा समूह का नेतृत्व ऐसे समय में संभाला जब टाटा समूह को अनेक प्रकार के परिवर्तन करना जरूरी था और धैर्यपूर्वक बारीकी से अध्ययन करके टाटा समूह के सारे उद्योगों को और काम करने की पद्धति को दोनों को उन्होंने परिवर्तित किया और पहले की तरह आज भी टाटा समूह भारत के उद्योग जगत में एक ध्रुव तारा बनकर है।
A nation in mourning, Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde has also said the national flags at the government offices in the state will be lowered to half-mast. No entertainment programs will be held. They've given instructions for the cremation to be in state ceremony. Our nation is mourning the loss of one of his beloved leaders, an industrialist, philanthropist. But talking about earnings today in respect to his demise, TCS, which was expected to report numbers today, is going to report their numbers. So the earnings release and the analyst call is on track. But there is going to be no press briefing, which typically takes place at 5:30. And I suspect, the board members and the leaders would be, at the cremation, which is at about 3:30 p.m. In terms of expectations, expected dollar revenue growth of 1.2%, constant currency revenue growth of about 2%. The BSNL deal would aid the top line. Typically, margins expand in Q2, but this time we're expecting a very marginal margin expansion of about 20 basis points. So normally margins expand in Q2 because in Q1 they get depressed because of wage hikes. So the absence of wage hike automatically pushes up margins in Q2 by 100 basis points because we look at margins on a quarter-on-quarter basis points, quarter-on-quarter. But this time that BSNL deal, which is ongoing, could depress margins because analysts believe it is at lower, margins. What the management told us last time around, that FY25 will be better than FY24, that they weren't calling out the sustainability of growth, and they had also said that the aspirational margin band of 24 to 26% remains intact. The street's going to track the deal wins because it gives you revenue visibility. It will also track Europe. Europe is likely, going through a challenging time. The street is going to be watching out for any early indications of client conversations, client behavior, because in the US, which was hurting because of higher interest rates, we've started seeing the cuts, interest rate cuts. So will that push up budgets, though they'll get announced only next year in January, Februuary? Discretionary spend, AI and generative AI pipeline will also be tracked.
Okay, so it'll be an important stock to track for sure, but let's move on and talk about some other moving stocks. Adani Enterprises has launched a QIP. Abhishek Kothari is joining us with all those details on that one.
Well, sources do tell CNBC-TV18 that Adani Enterprises has launched a QIP. So the issue size is about 4,200 crores. The indicative price that they have set is about 2,962 per share, which is at a discount of more than 6% to yesterday's closing price and around 5% discount to SEBI floor price. Now, calculation shows that equity dilution would be around 1.2 to 1.25% on the existing equity base, and BRLM includes ICICI Securities and others. Back to you.
Okay, and Credit Access Grameen also came out with a Q2 business update. Abhishek, how did the numbers look?
Credit Access Grameen's business update showed that the AUM decline on a sequential basis is the highest in last 9 quarters. So disbursements are down 19.5% YOY and about 10.5% sequentially. They remain strongly capitalized with CRAR at 26.4% versus 25.2% in the previous quarter. However, the AUM growth that's declined on a sequential basis by 4.5% and grown by only 12 to 13% on a YOY basis. Collection efficiency including arrears is at 96.2% versus 97.9% in the previous quarter, and collection efficiency in Q2 of FY24 excluding arrears was about 98.7%. So disbursal to AUM ratio that continues to remain in negative territory for second quarter in a row, now at minus 29.25% versus minus 9.2% in the previous quarter. Overall, in absolute basis, the AUM is at 3-quarter low. Back to you.
Okay, all right. So that is Credit Access Grameen, some of these stocks which are on our radar. Before we wrap the show, let's quickly look at what the markets are doing currently. The mid-caps continue to do well, though even the mid-cap index has come off from the highs. But some notable names which are moving with big volumes in the broader markets. So we have something like an Avalon Tech, which is up 10%. Mazagon Dock, after that fall that it saw recently, it's up around 10-odd%. Rain Industries, we've been talking about that big order win there. That stock is up 7%. Gujarat Fluorochemicals is up 6.5%. We do have some of these fertilizer names doing well as well. So RCF is higher in trade. Tata Chemicals out of F&O ban, that stock is also surging 6%. So all these stocks in focus, but of course the market breadth right now is in favor of advances versus the declines. And Nifty has come off from the highs, though it started inching up higher again. So it's 60-point gain that we are seeing on the Nifty currently.
With that, it's a wrap on Trading Hour from the entire team. Thank you for watching.